Namaste Shala tribe, and welcome to another new month ahead of us. If you're realizing it is maybe the third month of the year and you haven't yet come to yoga, this is your check-in, this is your reminder. We are holding space weekly for you to journey, explore, and awaken to your truest sense of yourself. We've got an exciting lineup in terms of classes at the Shala for this month. We have got a number of morning classes we are launching. And if we look at our schedule as Mondays and Wednesdays replicating, and Tuesdays and Thursdays mirroring each other. So Mondays we've got our afternoon classes 4:30 and 6 p.m. and same thing on a Wednesday. You guys will notice a slight change on our schedule. So beginners on Wednesdays are moving to 4:30, and we're adding a new slot on Wednesday evenings, a 6 p.m. flow with Alistair. So that's also the cue for all of our beginner yogis who journeyed with Alistair from last year or before then. I know a number of you are ready to graduate to the next level, and this way you can still keep your practice on a Wednesday, maybe a slight later slot, and that would be the next slot for you to almost move in and to start finding your feet. This month we are introducing another wellness modality, movement healing practice to our Shala, and that is the one of Qigong. So we will be welcoming Chris on board with very many years of deep Qigong insights and knowledge, and can definitely shed a light on our path in terms of mastering our own inner Qi, our prana, our vital life force. So Qigong is a very gentle practice, and it comes down to if you can stand, if you can walk, you can do the practice. So it helps to sink slow, deep, mindful breathing with some visualization along with these very gentle practices, and can really bring a lot of benefits aside from the physical and mental calming, the grounding, the mindful breathing. It really is a beautiful practice to welcome in to our Shala, and we do look forward to welcome you guys to attend this session as well. Then on Sunday the 13th we'll have Lauren from Soul Sessions joining us for this month's Shala session. We'll have Lauren holding space for one of her beautiful immersive sound bath experiences. So if you joined Lauren last year and you enjoyed it, definitely don't miss this event. If you don't know what sound healing is about, this is the event to come and check out and experience that beautiful bliss as she takes us right to our center using sound and the vibration and the healing that comes around with that. So Shala tribe, we've got our schedule out, we are holding space, and we can't wait to welcome you back. I know with a lot happening in the world, it can shake us to our core and make us lose our stability, make us lose our footing. But it's in times like this that we more than ever need to come back to our yoga practice. Not only does it get the body moving, gets us out of that state of panic and helplessness, it gives us something to do, something we can do in that moment that will empower us, albeit mentally, albeit physically. And this is also where our yoga practice serves us, to teach us that we can't do anything about the challenges and the struggles outside of ourselves, but we can catch ourselves. Where does our mind drift in times of this challenge? And that's ultimately our yoga practice, to realize we have these mental tendencies, these certain attachments to things, and that we can just watch those thoughts, let them come in, let them pass through us, and deal with it from there. So this is your reminder to book for class, to show up on your mat, even on the days where you don't feel like it, because we all know walking out of that yoga class at the end of it, we are going to feel a lot better a lot more at peace and be at a better space to navigate the things around us. On that note, I think more than ever are experiencing that there is chaos around us. There is things that shakes us at our core. There is stuff that makes us lose our grounding, makes us lose our footing. And if you may be feeling that this is only now, then that might also be a rude awakening, because whatever perceived control we have been led to believe that we have is also just an illusion, because we're forever on that cusp between order and chaos. And if we allow this chaos to consume us and allow us to feel completely powerless, then that doesn't become too good. But if we also so tightly cling to everything, wanting to control everything, bringing structure into everything, that also creates problems. So it's forever that fine balance between that order and chaos. And it's in times like this where we also go to some of the philosophical supportive texts on our yoga journey. And here the Bhagavad Gita too speaks of a great war, a big battle, and that's the one we face every single day. It's that inner battle between our mind, its control, its pull by the senses, the emotions, the thoughts that goes with it, versus our higher mind, our consciousness, and its pure discriminative qualities. The Bhagavad Gita early on starts with, on this holy plain of Kurukshetra, who won this day? And Kurukshetra becomes that field of consciousness, becomes our dharmic field, and that statement becomes the statement we need to ask ourselves every day. On this battlefield, this field of consciousness, who won this day? Between the mind and its external pull versus the higher mind and that sense of consciousness. Material desire is extremely powerful. It's the king of all worldly enjoyment, and it's the cause of our daily battle against the soul's rightful claim to this bodily kingdom. Now we know how the story goes. We maybe set all good intentions to start our day, our week, a bit more mindfully. Perhaps intentions of being present, to move with awareness in our day, to show up for our meditation and our yoga practice, to eat well. But then we feel almost immediately that opposition from that king of all of our senses and its input, that material desire. And we know how that story goes. We settle in for meditation, and here the mind comes. I don't feel like meditating right now. I'm tired, or I need to make this call, or there's this really, really pressing matter that I have to get to right now. I'll get to my practice later. And we know later comes and it goes, and we didn't get to our practice. And then comes that loop of beating ourselves up about it. But you see, once we start to uncover these wisdoms within the Bhagavad Gita, it gives us all the tools to show what we're going to face on our journey and how do we move past that. So within us is a part that a lot of us overly identify with, and that's that ego, that sense of self. And in Sanskrit this is called ahamkara, which translates as the I maker. What part within us makes us feel separate, sometimes even superior to the people around us? And that's that ahamkara, that I-ness. And that part within ourselves gets threatened so quickly and feels terrified that we lose this battle against this mental and bodily kingdom. So through this threat, our material desire gets reinforced by what we call in Sanskrit our samskaras. Now samskaras are seeds or impressions left of every thought, every action you get involved with. So it comes down to that a thought or action doesn't cease to be once we are done with it. It continues to live in our subconscious mind as an impression that stays with us, sometimes for a day, sometimes for a month. There might be impressions from our childhood that can still rear its head on our path. And this is all unfinished energy from our past. And if we continue to let it, these samskaras can run our life, especially if we don't do the work, if we cling to emotions, if we cling to that sense of ego, our own self-preservation, and if we continue to react from that place of our conditioned response. So instead of just noticing, this is a thought this human body is experiencing, and we let it move through us as we feel it, as we experience it. If we don't understand the impressions left by things, we continue to build up this stored energy, creating this complete internal narrative that we cling to with all of our might, and that we continue to fight to defend. Years down the line, these impressions can stir up again and take us right back to that exact moment and that exact thought. Our sensory inputs from today's thoughts digs through all the stuff you've stored over the years, and they restore that exact past pattern associated with the incoming event. And we keep storing and reactivating these seeds and these samskaras as they continue to dislodge in our psyche as blooming seeds. And at the start of our spiritual journey, we find these impressions, these samskaras, leaning towards and continue to enforce our bad habits and tendencies. That is why often starting something new that we know is good for us is hard at first, because our samskaras come in and completely pull us the other way. And this is why we need that tapas, that discipline right at the start, because we know implementing that new good habit, that good routine, isn't coming with open arms. And there are going to be those moments where we don't want to arrive for a practice, where we don't feel like doing it. But that's where we need to remind ourselves that we don't need to feel motivated to do the things that are good for us. We just need to show up and know that the mind is going to create this whole narrative in trying to negotiate our way out of these things. But if we can continue to show up with dedication, with commitment, with that discipline and tapas, at some point our samskaras are going to start swaying in our favor. Perhaps we no longer have that inner dialogue of convincing ourselves to bunk practice, but that the mind starts craving and yearning for that post-yoga feeling of bliss and peace, and that we naturally find ourselves gravitate towards the things that makes us feel good. In yoga, we often say we don't give up the stuff that's bad for us. It is a natural process of the stuff giving us up, where we don't feed that bad samskaric seeds, but that we start to have impressions that leads us towards better, more mindful habits. But that starts also with moving away from defending this I, this ego, ahamkara, the I maker. So we reach a point where we understand if we continue to protect ourselves, we will never be free. So we start by seeing, where do we continue to protect ourselves? How do we snap back at things that trigger us? How do we continue to make excuses for our own shortcomings instead of owning it, dealing with it, facing it head on? Baron Baptiste, in his Power Yoga book, Journey into Power, says it really well. If you continue to fight for your limitations, the prize is you get to keep them. Do you really want to hang on to your weaknesses, the things you continue to make excuses for? Or do you want to face this and transcend it and grow from it? On the other hand, the reward for not continuing to defend this ahamkara, this ego, is liberation. And we kind of feel how that moment starts when someone says or do something that triggers these impressions and digs up these seeds, these samskaras within us. We immediately feel that energy shift when it doesn't align with how we perceive the world. But remember, how we perceive the world is not necessarily how someone else perceives the world. But immediately we feel threatened in our sense of I. We feel that tightening, that closing up within our body. And the moment we feel that, let us be mindful that that is our cue to choose, are we going to continue with the same mental pattern that we know how it's going to end? Or are we going to use it as our cue to grow and to change how we respond? In order to grow, we must give up that struggle to remain the same. In order to grow, we must give up the struggle to remain the same. How hard do we fight for our weaknesses? How hard do we fight for our limitations? Understand that life is always better if we let go instead of choosing to close. Nothing is ever worth closing our hearts over. So guys, with that, I'll leave you and hope to meet and connect with you on the mat very soon. And I hope this plants a different kind of seed to contemplate and ponder, how do all these residual seeds of all of our thoughts and actions impact us, and how do they sway us, and cultivating our response to the things outside of us. Can we be aware that these things are just thoughts, just impressions, and that they can pass through us without having to define us? And so we move mindfully into journeying, exploring, and awakening to our truest, fullest potential. May you be well. Namaste.